All right, Miss Sarah, I think we're live.
All right, we're live. Sharon, today we're talking about something serious that
Hmm.
can be applied to everyone, but then serious that can be applied to certain groups. I posted 2 articles today, but I also have myself been feeling this way. Um, we're talking about showing up. And I know as a professional coach, you are constantly helping people show up. Bring your best selves to work. That's what you like to say, and I love that. Maybe talk a little bit about just the psychology behind showing up.
Yeah, I like, like you said, I like saying bring your best and your whole self to work. And I like to talk about executive presence, right? Because you get what, 20 seconds for that first impression, and that's all you have. And that impression is made
Yeah.
and decided in that 20 seconds. So whether you're showing up for work in person or for a board meeting or a call or the doctor's office, that first 20 seconds of interaction with someone else, there's a judgment.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of emphasis on showing up as your best self in
Yeah.
every situation, in every circumstance. And what does that look like? It's everything. It's the package. It's your dress. It's your hair. It's your speak. It's your first words of utterance. All
Yes.
of those things are taken in consideration in 20 seconds.
It's so crazy because I think the principle of showing up has
Yes.
transformed really over the last 3 years now. We're years out from COVID. But I mean, I can't imagine getting on a Zoom or doing a podcast or a vlog or whatever we're calling Tea Talk in 2019 or 2018 without like a full production of makeup and hair and this and that. And I agree with you that there are situations and circumstances where showing up as your best self requires a presentation.
Right.
I also value, I don't know how you feel about it, but I value this authenticity that we've
Yes.
been permitted since COVID, where I knew all day I was jumping on a 2 o'clock call with you and you're naturally gorgeous. I got to do a lot of work to get to the same place. But I love that I could just show up as me. It's
Yes.
my voice that's here. It's not my eyeshadow or, a pretty top. How do you feel? Where's the balance? Where's the balance of, scrubs and leaning into your hands versus speaking who you are and letting other people know you're articulate, you're passionate, you're educated, you're there's a thing about you that's uniquely you. Talk a little bit about this because it ties into the articles I'm going to bring up and how inequity can really pervert showing up. Oh, hopefully I haven't lost you. Good, you got me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay.
And it's a great, great question. So I saw this shift. So to speak to your point about what I said versus what you said. So I saw this shift in 2019, authenticity. So before on LinkedIn, for example, this very platform here, before you had to do a video presentation, you had to actually be perfect, video lighting perfect, everything perfect. And there was a backlash to that. So you had some newcomers saying, I'm just going to go like myself. And
Yeah.
they didn't have no makeup on. They had ponytails in. They had their sweatpants on. And those videos began to take off. And that was what shifted the movement of beautiful videos,
Right.
well documented, well produced, or someone with a phone like this saying, hey. And so, and I don't hopefully I'm still on, but
We can hear you.
that
Your
became the
video's
shift. So
frozen, but we can hear you.
okay, so here's what I say. The balance is who is the audience.
Yes.
For me, it's who's the audience. So if I'm comfortable in my audience, I'm going to show myself. If I'm not sure how you're going to accept me, I'm going to come with what I would consider to be the standard best self.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's where I draw the line for myself.
I think that's a good way to kind of balance it. Think of who it is you're speaking to. Who do you want? How do you want to be portrayed in those 20 seconds where people are making that decision about you? I think that's a great point. So I'm going to bring up. We're going to go through 3 things.
Yes.
Today. The first thing kind of is directly related to this. I read an article that said specifically Black people dress up when they go to the doctor. They felt when surveyed that they would be taken more seriously and treated better if they dressed up. So this is, a young guy, and he's putting on a button-down shirt and a pair of slacks to go to the doctor instead of his typical t-shirt and shorts. What do you think about that? How do you feel about that a person, because of their color, might feel or might have an experience that they have to dress up to get equitable healthcare?
So let's look at the culture of it, right? So in the Black community, you grew up around the term Sunday best. So if you're going anywhere, if you're going to church, if you're going anywhere formal, you have to be your best. You have to look your best. But it's church, anything that there's a respect required, you have to put yourself together. I remember for me, that's the culture I came from. So maybe it's a little bit of it is still in me, right? But I remember when I came to America, 37, 38 years ago, I couldn't understand how casual everyone was.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this? People are in t-shirts or in slippers and in places where I'm in heels. And so it's more cultural than anything else. I don't think I would feel comfortable going to certain places with just slippers, where I see my white counterparts, they do, and they're quite comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of it is really cultural.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is asking us to do that. But the perception, though, is this. And this is really strange, Sarah, because I would say to myself, a white person can look really cool in, cargo pants and a t-shirt. But I just don't feel it's perceived the same way when a Black person have on a cargo pants and a t-shirt going before the same audience. Isn't that strange?
It's so strange. My one of our doctors said, she's an Indian doctor, and she said when she talks to her daughter, who's just beautiful, looks like Princess Jasmine, when she says, when you go to Nordstrom or Lord & Taylor or Saks, dress up because you'll get better service.
Yeah.
And the girl, she's 16 and she's seeing her friends.
Yeah.
And they're dressed in exactly what you're saying. They've got sweatpants. Now they sell sneakers for $200 and $300 that are purposefully distressed to look dirty and old. And it's like you sit there and go, okay, I have officially become an old person.
Yeah.
But it's so true what you're saying, that it's like, I wonder, I don't think that I've ever thought, oh, if I dress this particular way or dress that particular way, I'm going to have better service. I don't know that I disagree with other people thinking that, but in healthcare, shouldn't you be able to just present yourself sick or present yourself in need of screening or diagnostics to help you live better? I don't know. I feel like when people feel they've got to dress up, isn't that creating a barrier?
You should, but you have to remember that the healthcare providers are still people that may see a Black group or a Black person or a Hispanic person differently, right? Because it's kind of like unconsciously built in.
Yeah.
So if we show up, let's say I show up in a scarf on my head, that's not going to go over too well, right? It's not. Let's say I was at home and I felt ill and we call 911 and I forgot that I had my scarf on because it's going to keep my hair neat for the next day. And I end up getting there with, oh my God, heaven forbid, my scarf. It's just not the same perception as maybe another woman who may get there in a cap or something gear. So we always feel, even when we're sick, we feel like we have to dress up.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And, I think we've got to start thinking about the culture of these types of things. But that leads me to the next story I want to share. A very close friend of mine was diagnosed with an aggressive breast cancer in her late 30s. So now we're going back probably 8 years, 7 years, 8 years. And she worked at a very prestigious organization. She had has a very high level position, and she's a single mom. She knew that she felt, but I think she knew that if the workplace knew that she was sick, that they might naturally, on the next round of layoffs, etc., lay her off. She also knew that thought she knew that if she told her family what she was about to go through, a very aggressive treatment plan, that they might feel worried that she might die and who's going to take care of her children, etc. Sharon, she went through from diagnosis to the last treatment, I think even to the 6-month scan, just to make sure. She didn't tell a single soul in her family or at her workplace. The fear of losing stability of the things that helped her live her life was too overwhelming. And I have often wondered how many people experience this, where they're going through such a devastating diagnosis and treatment plan alone, really alone. She lost her hair, but she wore wigs. She started losing weight, but she would layer up so that she didn't have to lie and say, oh, I'm on a diet plan. And thick or thin, she was at work. I think she took 2 or 3 days PTO when she just couldn't take it. But I often think, and she and I have often talked about, is there a disparity there? If she were white, would she have had such challenges in communication? And she herself says she doesn't know the answer, but she does know that being a younger in her late 40s or late 30s at the time, that she would have faced some of these issues. I don't know how you feel about that, especially considering you just went through a diagnosis and treatment plan yourself, where you did share with certain people, but you withheld from others. I don't know your feeling on it.
Yeah, so I don't know in the workplace if it mattered if you're black or white. I don't know. I wouldn't say that's an anti-black thing, or I wouldn't. I think professional people want to be perceived as professional at all times. So I don't think that's a color thing there. But I will say the point about who you tell, you're right. I only told 7 people in the beginning, here, including my husband and 2 kids, my mother-in-law, and then 3 others. Because I didn't want people planning my funeral already without me knowing what stage I was at. So I wanted to get through surgery first and hear, what it was, how bad it was, So it is important to guard that. Honestly, for newly diagnosed people, it's important to guard that. Now, some people are the opposite. The minute they hear, they tell the entire church or synagogue or wherever, because they want that support. And so I'm not saying there's any right or wrong. It's intensely personal. And after I felt like I got through the worst part, I began to tell people that here's what happened and here's where it's at right now. And for me, it was much better because in my mind, I felt more supported there.
Yeah. It's just interesting how people process these almost catastrophic things. You either close up or you open up, or like you're very selective, very kind of purposeful. But I still wonder how much unnecessary burden we place on ourselves in different cultural groups or ethnic groups based on what we think, based on the perception of what might happen, which really impacts your disease process because you're carrying all of that extra stress. So it's interesting to know. Well, the last thing I want to talk about is I read this article today. Leah Engelstad posted it about Hispanic pain. It was really a person living with a pain disease. I thought, this can't be real. So ultimately, she talks about barriers to diversity in clinical trials can come from a lack of cultural competency. She says an example how culture affects the experience of pain is described below. An article published in the Journal of Pain analyzed 100 studies on the pain experience of Hispanic Americans and found that they tend to experience pain differently from white Americans. Although Hispanic Americans are more sensitive to pain, they report fewer pain conditions such as back pain and arthritis due to cultural factors such as the value placed on being strong in the face of adversity, which may discourage Hispanic Americans from reporting their pain. Also, this was very intriguing to me. The review article also found that Hispanics, despite being more likely to work in manual labor and blue-collar jobs that put them at greater risk for injury, miss less work in the short term due to an injury than white Americans. This may be because their culture places a high value on work, and they may be more likely to push through their pain in the short term. However, may lead to higher rates of disability due to pain in the long term. In some ways, Sharon, this broke my heart because I thought, again, as a person who lives with chronic and degenerative pain, I can't imagine not being free, even culturally free, to live in a way that honored the way my body was feeling or promoting me to work. And it makes me very sad that there is a culture that says to people, work through it, power through it, even if it costs you in the long term a greater disability, because you've got to be strong. I don't know how you feel about this, but it certainly was, tied into the showing up.
Culture has such a strong grip on us, right? And then I've heard this argument too about Black women with cancer, with pain management, that doctors tend to give Black women less pain management help because it is understood subconsciously that we can bear more pain. So I've seen that research out there. So we get less pain intervention therapies compared to our white counterpart because, the slavery background, that type of stuff, that we came up under that strength, slavery, we can bear children in the woods and stuff like that. So the perception that they have a higher pain tolerance.
Yeah.
That's not really true. I have a very low pain tolerance.
Well, that's what this article is saying too. It says Hispanic Americans are more sensitive to pain. So clearly these pain studies that this meta-analysis has summarized has given the author the right to say Hispanic Americans are more sensitive to pain, but they report fewer pain conditions because culture says stand strong, show up strong. So I guess it goes back to what we're talking about, showing up. It's like you got to show up authentically. If you're in pain, speak it out. I'm in pain today. I'm a little, I may take half the day off, whatever it might be. Honor your experiences. Same thing with my girlfriend. Had she told someone, even one trusted person at work, even one trusted person in her family, to help carry the load of what she was carrying, so much of this really comes down to those same perceptions. I like to say, or I will like to say, Sharon, I don't care how people judge me in the first 20 seconds. I don't know if that's because I'm 45, I'm where I want to be in my life, I'm happy in my skin. I feel, we were on the phone with Jason Thompson from Cape. I feel that I've lived both a life of privilege and I've created privileged opportunities. And so I don't know. There's such a power in living and showing up authentically, that I think transcends just how you show up, physically. It's how you can express things like pain or suffering, in underrepresented communities. I think these all hold keys to why these groups do worse with disease, because they're not free to speak their truth in their lived experience. And it doubles back on their body. I don't know, I think this is something we've got to really look at.
Yes. A couple of things that you said, and I know we're closing down, but you talked about your friend who didn't say anything, and I will admit that my decision of not saying anything to anyone except that 7, I don't know if it was the best decision, because when I could say it to others, the support that came in was wonderful.
Yes.
And I don't know if it would have been maybe better had I said it earlier. So you're right about that, because we have that judgment, prejudging the situation. So I do agree with that it might have been better to share earlier. It might have been. The second point that you made, Sarah, about the authentic showing up, that and the whole privilege. Yes, you're where you want to be. Let's call it, you have it made. You're over 40, so I don't care what you say. All of those things are true, but it's not always that for others.
Absolutely. It wasn't that for me in my 20s. It wasn't it for me in my 20s. I had to play the game. In my 30s, I had to show up in the line. But I think this is where, you come to the comparison of living in that perception and then just living authentically.
And I will just say, as a Black woman, when I turned 40, I did say that. I did say, I don't care about opinions anymore. And I lived out loud. I lived out large. And I do think that that part is a decision. If you're Black, Hispanic, whatever, you need to choose to make for yourself.
Yes, yes. Well, on that note, Sharon, give us something great to end our week of Tea Talks, something inspiring that'll activate those healing T cells in our body.
I would say, based on this discussion, that there is value in community. And so we should be really mindful of prejudging.
Yes.
If you had to err on the side of community.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And this community that we serve in our Tea Talks, in our Total Health, in our nonprofit launch.
Yes.
This community is a community that understands the value of community, the definition of community, because none of us can do it alone.
No.
And so I thank you, Sharon, for your time. I thank you always for showing up, giving us your best. And I look forward to next week, where we bring more topics on the things that matter to us in cancer care and in the cancer community.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.